Where are you from?
I'm from Los Angeles, California.
What was your first break?
My first break, I would say, was meeting Allison Jones. I had a general meeting with her really soon after I graduated from NYU and had moved to Los Angeles, and she gave me my first job and also cast me in a film that is to date the most fun that I've ever had on set.
What have you been in?
I have been in Veep on HBO and a myriad of independent films. A coming-of-age story called Beneath the Harvest Sky that premiered at Toronto Film Festival, and a road movie called Shut Up and Drive that premiered at Tribeca Film Festival, and then most recently a film called Chronic that won Screenplay Prize at Cannes last year. It's a sort of merciless portrait of a palliative care nurse played by Tim Roth, directed by Michelle Franco, and also The Newsroom.
How do you feel about this career?
I think that it's not for the faint of heart. I think that there are ways that choosing to pursue it as a career as opposed to just having a passion for it and an interest is challenging in ways that you can't really anticipate until you're in the throes of it. But that said, I think it's an extraordinary privilege to be able to make your living as an artist and to be someone who is working in this industry, let alone consistently, and let alone in projects that have integrity, is an insanely privileged and charmed position to be in.
How did you decide to become an actor?
I always describe it as a slow burn. I was an avid reader of plays even as a kid, and I always had this peripheral interest in the notion of acting, but I didn't feel that it was something that I would be capable of doing. It seemed sort of impractical. And then I went to an art school wherein by the time you're 14 you basically choose whatever art that you want to focus on, and the thing that made most sense to me and was most compelling to me was acting, but again at that point it was still sort of just a hobby. And I think one of the things that was of note in that time, that what made me sort of ultimately decide to study it in school and start to take it more seriously, was that I had debilitating panic attacks every single day. Simple things, even just sitting in a chair in class was really difficult to me, whereas standing on a stage and memorizing these words and speaking them that would otherwise be nerve-wracking for other people, I felt at ease. And not that it's some self-serving instinct to be an actor, but I think just psychologically that says something. And I guess eventually what became clear to me was that given my particular set of strengths and weaknesses and my desire to collaborate and communicate and tell stories, that was the way that best served me doing that.
How would you describe your specialty or type?
I don't think that I have a type, and not to evade the question, I just think that I've been lucky to be able to play parts that are really different from each other, and I think that I have the capacity to look different and sort of shape, shift, and transform. And my specialty, I feel like I generally thrive doing dramatic work, but in any genre, I think maybe my specialty would be finding the wound in a character that I'm playing, which I think is an interesting sort of access point into their behavior and why they are the way that they are.
Who's your favorite actor who you look up to?
I have so many. Jenna Rollins, Woman Under the Influence. I just rewatched Hannah and Her Sisters, Diane Wiest. Lauren Bacall, Rosalind Russell, Faye Dunaway, Jane Fonda, Jodie Foster, Julianne Moore, Cate Blanchett, Marion Cotillard, and male actors. I mean, Michael Shannon. I think that seeing David Cromer's production of Our Town is, to date, one of the most moving experiences that I've ever had watching live theater. Yeah, there's so many.
What would your ideal job be?
I think that my ideal next job would be to play a character that, again, is antithetical to anything that I've done prior. To me, I feel like I want to establish myself first and foremost as an actor and not just a personality and someone that that does the same things. So I don't know, like doing Chronic was really nice. It's very, very dark. I like the idea of taking on something that is sort of unexpected, maybe when playing like a really unlikable character or someone that's really emotionally broken or dealing with some kind of heightened emotional circumstances. Yeah.
Do you consider yourself to be lucky?
Yeah, of course. I mean, not even just in work, which I sort of touched on a little bit, but I've never been at an absence of things that I needed. I have an amazing family. I have parents who are extraordinary people and really like had lives outside of me and led by example, like always following richness and complexity and having sort of these unusual and unconventional paths. I am healthy and yeah, so I consider myself immensely lucky. Yeah.
Would you rather have a car or a diploma?
A diploma. If my 2 diplomas could eradicate my need for a car, I would be so happy. It's the one thing I miss so much about New York, is just being able to walk places and public transportation. Yeah, I mean, I've had the same car since I was 16 years old, so I've been through a lot with that car, but I also loathe it and sort of resent it. You know what, that's not fair. I don't resent the car. I resent Los Angeles traffic and how long it takes to get from one place to another, and you know, how inaccessible things can feel sometimes here.
What do you think about the need for instant gratification?
I mean, I think that in some cases it's harmless, and that there are circumstances wherein I'm guilty of succumbing to instant gratification. Obviously, I think that more often than not, if you're able to sort of breathe through whatever that needy feeling is, it's always better to kind of figure out what's on the other side of that. And that's a big reason why I don't have any kind of social media, because like anyone, you know, I would have the tendency to sort of use that as a mode of distraction. And I feel like if you can challenge yourself to put fewer things in front of you, you're more likely to read a book or watch a classic film or, you know, have a conversation. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think that instant gratification can be helpful in some moments. Yeah.
How do you feel about how interconnected the world is becoming?
I mean, I think ultimately it's an amazing thing, but it's interesting that a lot of the same technology that makes that possible is also the same technology that keeps people sort of isolated. But I think the instinct to be interconnected is, you know, right and a good thing. Yeah.
What does the future look like to you?
I don't know. I really don't. Which I think is a good thing. I've never been much of a planner, and I'm always excited by the ways that things I suspect will happen do, and the ways that, you know, in the past I've said certain things that I would or wouldn't do that I did that surprised me. I have no idea.
How do you feel about having children?
I have always said that I don't want to have children, but I think that stems more from the fact that I've never imagined that my life would be very conducive to having them. It's something that I think is such a beautiful thing to do, and if I ever did, would want to do it right, and I wouldn't know how to marry continuing to pursue all of my goals in this career and being a hands-on mother. But again, I fully recognize that however many years from now I might feel entirely differently and scoff at the fact that I ever said that. So.
What challenges do you feel the world is facing today?
Too many to mention. I think that, in this country alone, in no particular order, I think that we have an insanely flawed Medicare system and that there should be universal health care. I think that although it's important to acknowledge that we've made a lot of progress in these respective feats, that discrimination is still a huge problem, as evidenced by the fact that equal pay for women is still a valid conversation, not just in my industry, but outside of that, as evidenced by the accounts, staggering accounts of police brutality in the last, however many years, and as evidenced by the fact that, while it's important to celebrate the fact that gay marriage is now legal, acknowledging the absurdity that that's only been so for less than a year. But I think, on a macro level, I think the world faces climate change and the ignorance of people that don't think that climate change is real, despite scientific evidence. I think that the world faces, deeply rooted intolerance and hatred and, religious wars and poverty. And the interesting thing is that saying these things here from a place where a lot of those things are sort of unimaginable and unfathomable, I think there's a certain responsibility also with access to information to not become desensitized. It's almost, you see so many people overwhelmed by the grand scope of things that need to change that they become complacent and inactive. And so I think that a big thing that the world faces is apathy. But also, it's important to be able to distinguish the ways in which you can make a difference and the things that you are able to change and the things that you and I, for example, are not, or at least not alone. So I think, just name a few. Yeah.
What is your favorite way to communicate?
I like this question. Face-to-face, definitely. But I also love writing letters. I feel like there's a sort of forgotten grace about receiving a letter in the mail, handwritten. So I have a few people that I still write letters to. And also through work. I feel like there are a lot of things that I'm able to show or articulate through my work that I wouldn't otherwise have an opportunity to say if sitting across from you at a meal or in a dive bar with a jukebox or something,
What do you think of the creative scene in Los Angeles?
Well, I think that, like anything in Los Angeles, you have to sort of be discerning and know where to look, because I think because the industry is centered here, or multiple industries, it attracts so many creative people, which is amazing. But I think that I was sort of spoiled by living in New York, and with my particular medium, with acting, theater is, such a presence and such a normal part of daily life, whereas I haven't found that as much here. But I will say that when I look around, because I grew up here and went to an art school, I feel very lucky to be privy to this art scene of people that I've known since I was 12, many of whom are still committed to the art that they chose to study. And so I feel like more often than not, actually in Los Angeles, I feel connected to the music scene. Like a lot of the bands that I listen to in heavy rotation every day are bands from Los Angeles, like Papa, Harriet, Dawes, Haim, and they're all people that I know either well or just peripherally, and I've been staying play since I was like 14. And like a friend of mine is a photographer, and I went to a show of hers, and the photographs were beautiful, and there was this huge painting that you could take a Bic lighter to, and when you moved the lighter, the color changed, and it would reveal messages that were written under the paint. And then I looked at the placard, and it was someone that I was in math class with in 6th grade. So yeah, I mean, in that sense, I do feel like the creative scene in Los Angeles is really interesting, and something that I feel lucky to be connected to. I think I wish it were just more concentrated and accessible.
What is your favorite book, film, and music right now?
Okay, I'm going to take the right now to heart because there's so much. The music I've been listening to obsessively is Tame Impala, and I always listen to Arcade Fire. I feel like because the seasons here don't change, I can like sooner mark periods of time relative to whatever Arcade Fire album that I was listening to at the time. Books, I'm almost completely finished with Heartbreaking Work of Staggering Genius, which is such a beautiful book, and something that I picked up earlier in the fall and then had to put down because it shook me and was so prevalent to certain things that were actually happening in my life. But and I'm not much of a monogamous reader anyway, so I fell asleep the other night reading Bukowski's short stories, and actually at some point turned over and got a paper cut on my face. And I just read The Glass Castle, which was amazing, and I just started Stoner, which was recommended to me by someone that I greatly respect. Movies, God, I mean, I love classic movies and going to like the New Beverly and kind of art house cinema. I saw Magnolia screen there in the last year, which was so amazing to see on a big screen. It's my favorite Paul Thomas Anderson movie. I think of things I've seen recently. Mustang. I just saw Midnight Special, which I really enjoyed. I love Jeff Nichols movies. And what else? Yeah, I think... Do I get extra space on my sheet to write in movies that I like? Okay, then I have a laundry list, and that's a good place to start.